What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I got something special planned for you guys, and it features Redcat Concepts with their little mini pork belly 24. Stick around. You won't want to miss what I got planned for you. Redcat Concepts is another company out here producing stuff for RC crawlers. I had no idea about it, but my buddy Rocky put me on game. He said the guy Eric is a really nice guy. He met him at Prime by the fire, and then that's when he got interested. He has a few of their 110 pork belly chassis. I'll put a link down below where you can check that out. He came out with a 24 scale of a pork belly version, and I happen to have an extra set. So I'll have the video up of the 24 scale build soon, but for now, this is going to be focused on using the prototype chassis of their pork belly and using that to modify for 18 scale Redcat Ascent. So I think this is going to be a dope video. So this right here is the prototype chassis that I'm going to be modifying for the 18 scale, because Rocky was kind enough to give me this one first. And then he was like, well, if you're going to do a video, let me give you a full chassis. So this is going to be later. But this is going to be focused on the 18 scale. As you can see, these holes are smaller, but I've gone ahead and drilled one bigger, where you can see the difference between the STX24 and the screws used for the Redcat Ascent 18. So I'm going to take this Redcat apart and line up the holes, get everything drilled out, and I'll come to you when I got the skid mounted to this chassis, and we'll go from there. Now, if you can tell, I've gone ahead and drilled out the chassis holes, and you can see the difference on the skid here. So kind of excited for that. These are the same holes that I were using with the existing chassis for the Redcat. Only thing I'm worried about is the difference between the shock length. So we're going to see about that. But so far, so good.
24 hours later.
All right, y'all. I've gotten it done. And I'm at my favorite shop, Cajon Hobbies. And I've gotten it done. I put this chassis on this car here for the Redcat, and it's the PB24, as you guys can see. I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna break it down how I did this, and I'm gonna show you some performance gains that, in my opinion, makes any chassis swap worth it compared to stock rails when you're working on any mini crawler. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with stock, but there's always something out there better than what you're used to or what you have. So we just gave it a try, and it turned out to be amazing. So let me show you guys what we got going. And here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is my Redcat Ascent 18. I know it doesn't look like it much, but it is. And let me show you what I did here. The first thing I'm going to do is take off these wheels here. Perfect. That's off here. And kidoki. Now, when I did mine, I took the existing chassis rails and I lined it up with this rails here. But one thing I noticed that is an issue to me is, you can see here, when I made these markings here for the existing chassis right there to hold the side plate in, they didn't really line up. So what I did was, all I used to mount this rails to this skid plate here was I used the link mounting positions to hold it in place to the chassis. So that way I know it's not going anywhere. So you can see exactly what I'm talking about as I take this chassis apart here on the sides. So there we have it. So I tried to line up these holes here. See those holes with that hole? And so when I lined it up, it was just off with the side link holes. So I just figured I'd take this existing hole that I punched out and this one, and use that to hold it in place. And I used the top position on the skid plate here. So not this bottom hole, I used the top hole and I used that hole, and I was able to mount it together to the side, and the screws were just long enough so that way, where's my side rail? It was able to fit inside and go all the way through here and through the link, and then that's how I was able to get this to the side of the chassis. So after I made two existing, I took this side, did the holes, I matched it up with the other side so that way they're parallel and they're perfectly even. I then mounted it up like so. So I took this, put the link through here, put the link through the bottom one here, and if I can get it in, and then I went ahead and tightened it down right there. And I'm gonna go ahead and reverse that and do that now. I'm only using the link mounting location here. Take that here, screw that down, and as you can see, it's going in. And it's gonna hold the rails to the chassis, to the skid, all that together. We're gonna go to the same thing on this side. To this link mount position here. Tighten it down. So this is step one to how I did this. Next thing you know, there was more complications, but I'll guide you guys along the rest of those as well. So now that's in there nice and snug. It's not going nowhere. It's solid. These rails are flexible. Okay, now I got the chassis put back together somewhat. Let me show you guys what I got. T-Rex 4M links, the PB24 chassis, which comes with accessories, I guess you could say, but they're just things to help you out with mounting the body. Like you got a cage and stuff like that, but it came with this flexible chassis brace for the rear, and it had a hole in there, so I figured this would be the perfect spot for me to go ahead and just bloop, I can put the body on there and then screw that down. And then the front came with this part, so of course that's flexible too. Slap some Velcro on there, put some Velcro on the body. Front's held down by Velcro. In the rear, I just use a small 2.5 screw, and that holds the body onto it. Now let's talk about the rails here. So when I did this, I'm using the stock shocks now, right guys? But I had the stock shocks on here. If you guys are familiar with the Redcat chassis, you already know that it's wider at the center, but then it goes thinner once you get to each side, the front and the rear, on the rails. Well, for this one, everything was just straight parallel. So these shock bodies were too big and were interfering with the chassis here. So what I went ahead and did was I flipped the shocks around. As you can see, look at that dampening though, look. Oh, nice, look. One more time, yeah. Nice, slow and controlled. What I did was flip the shocks upside down, and I drilled out the hole for the shock mount position. And then I just used the M2.5 screw and M2.5 nut to hold it together. On the bottom, it's the same thing, M2.5 screw. And it's been working really, really well, I must say. Another thing I had to do, I guess it wasn't too many things I had to do, but it's just probably better if I explain what I had to do. See this part of the chassis here? I cut these rails out. Because like I said, even after I flipped them around, and I added a spacer, it was still interfering with the chassis, and the shocks were just not unloading. It would just stay up like that because it was just interfering. You can see that tuning right there. Nice. So what I did was just took a little bit of material out of here at the bottom. So this is what I did for this side. So now you can see it's not hitting or interfering. I gotta tighten that down. Same thing with this side. And I did the same thing with the front. It's just slightly flexes, but I do see a weak point that I've created here by, I think, cutting too much off, because now it seems like it's going to crack. But it's not a little baking soda and super glue won't fix. Also cut off maybe 5 millimeters on the front of the chassis. It wasn't hitting this at all, but I just want to give it the extra clearance. Yeah, guys, that's pretty much the same thing. That's all I really did to make this thing work. It was nothing spectacular. I just made my own holes, and I just looked at the geometry, how things are set up, and I went with it. And so far, so good. Besides this one little stress fracture that I can get out and fix up myself, I like the way this performs now over the stock chassis. One thing it did was give it a significantly lower center of gravity. So you can even see I trimmed up the body a few millimeters on the bottom because it was just so much sticking out at the bottom now. But once we get it mounted on there, you'll see how much lower this thing sits on here now. You know, that's significantly a lot lower. I don't have another one to test to show you, but that definitely sits a lot lower than it did before. I even had to cut it up a little bit more because you'll see all that flex on there, which is never a good thing, but in this case, since I used 5K diff oil for my shocks, it's been perfect, you know. The front's a little soft because before the shocks were laid up with the other chassis, but now they're a little down. So And I just see how that happened. Every time I pull this off, it's stressing that out. So I got to get that situated. But it's been working really well. And I must say, PB24, you guys need to think about a PB18 because Res Concepts, this thing is pretty awesome. And this is my layout that I have for this car. I don't think I've ever gone over that. So, as you guys can see, NSDRC, I got my own mini BEC. I'm running 8.4 volts, nano BAM, Spectrum setup with the Lizard Pro. This thing is a dream and it crawls like a dream. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Here it is, all connected up. As you can see, nice and slow. And it does the job, man. I got that burst when I needed to. And again, this is running on 3S. Nice and controlled. And it's really quiet too. I did put a lot of gear grease on the gears to prevent it from being so loud. So I'm a big fan of this car, even more than I already was. And just look at that. Up and over. Up and over. This video's not fast forwarded either. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna set it. that PB24, aka PB18 from Res Concepts, after I did the adaptation, it worked out pretty well, I must say. I'm very impressed with it, and I'm going to just keep trying this chassis out and see what I can do and tune it out. Probably try to find some different shots that'll be a little bit better. But as of now, I like it, and I like the Redcat before. It just makes me like it even more. That's all I got for you guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.